Welcome back to Superbly Said Advanced English Vocabulary and Phrases. Have you ever noticed that the most powerful executives in the world often sound less like careful, data-driven business leaders and more like they're, playing at a casino?
Oh, absolutely. It's almost like they're speaking a completely different language.
Right. And today, we're looking at why that is. But first, just a quick note. The content for today's session comes directly from a SpeakDuo lesson.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to put what we're about to discuss into practice, you can just go to SpeakDuo.com. You can meet new people from all around the world who are practicing English on video calls.
Yeah, which is honestly just an absolutely fantastic way to build your speaking confidence.
Totally.
And just to set the stage for you, this session is specifically tailored for advanced English learners. I mean, we are entirely skipping the basics today.
We really are.
Mastering the idioms we're about to cover is like the key to sounding natural in high-level professional or academic conversations. Whether you're navigating a complex boardroom negotiation or sitting for an advanced English exam.
Exactly. So let's just dive right into how ideas actually form in those high-level spaces.
Let's do it.
Because, we like to think that every massive corporate initiative is the result of this rigorous, strict planning. But often that's not the language people actually use.
No, not at all.
They use our first phrase, which is come about, meaning to happen or develop, often in an unexpected way.
Right, because the alternative to coming about is, well, to plan or to execute.
And planning is so rigid.
Exactly. When you plan something, it's deliberate. You set a goal, you write out the steps, you execute the steps. But when you say a situation came about, you are implying an organic, almost accidental evolution.
Like it just happened.
Yeah, you didn't force it. The conditions were just right, and it naturally emerged.
So it's kind of the difference between earning $20 by working a long shift versus reaching into an old winter coat and just finding a $20 bill in the pocket.
Oh, that's a great way to look at it.
Right. One was executed, and the other just sort of, came about.
Exactly.
But I'm curious about the psychology here. Like, if I pulled off a massive new client deal at work, why wouldn't I want to take the credit for that? Why would I tell my boss that the deal just came about?
Well, because it's actually a brilliant linguistic tool for projecting humility.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, think about it. If you say, I meticulously executed this multi-million-dollar acquisition.
Just sound like a robot. Or just really arrogant.
All right, exactly. You sound overly aggressive. But if you say, I was explaining to my boss how the new client collaboration came about after a chance conversation at an event.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that sounds way more approachable.
Mm-hmm. You're acknowledging that luck and timing played a role. And ironically, that actually makes you look more seasoned and confident.
That makes a lot of sense. And for those taking the IELTS speaking exam, say, part 2, where you have to describe an opportunity you had, you might say, often opportunities come about when I try something new.
Right. It shows the examiner you understand that some events just lack a strict, planned timeline.
Yeah, which is how most good ideas begin anyway.
True. But an idea just coming about is really only step 1. The next phase is what you actually do with it.
Which is when you kick around the idea, meaning to be discussed, considered, or remain in circulation.
Yeah.
Now, my immediate thought is to compare kicking around to brainstorming. Are they the same thing?
They share some DNA, sure, but they are practically opposites in how they function in the real world.
Wait, really? Opposites?
Yeah. A brainstorm is an active, scheduled event. It's literally on your calendar.
Right, you book a room.
Exactly. You sit in a room with a whiteboard for an hour with the specific goal of generating ideas, but kicking around an idea is completely passive.
Oh, I see.
It's informal. It happens over weeks or even months, in the hallway, over coffee, or just casually at the end of a meeting.
Okay, but wait. If I tell my boss we're kicking an idea around, doesn't that make me sound a little lazy?
How so?
Like we're almost actively avoiding making a real decision.
It definitely can, yeah, especially if you use it for an urgent problem. Like if the building is on fire, you don't kick around evacuation routes.
Ah, right, definitely not.
The phrase is inherently non-committal. Think about if you're kicking a soccer ball around a field with a friend.
You're not keeping score.
Exactly. You aren't playing a serious high-stakes match. You're just seeing how the ball moves, feeling things out. The same goes for ideas. The timeline is long, and the pressure is very low.
So in a normal work setting, you might say, that idea has been kicking around the team for several months without a decision. You're signaling that it's on the radar, but no one has pulled the trigger yet.
Right. Or In an IELTS context, you could say, a plan to start a simple blog has been kicking around in my head.
Okay, yeah. It shows the thought is present, but no firm action has been taken yet.
Exactly. But, there's a danger in kicking an idea around forever.
Yeah, at some point, the casual phase has to end, and you actually have to commit to something.
Right. And in business, committing to an unproven idea is honestly terrifying.
It really is.
Yeah.
Which is why we use language that shifts the blame to fate. And that brings us to our next phrase, which is to roll the dice.
Yes, rolling the dice.
This means to take a risk without knowing the result.
And you really have to look at the contrast between rolling the dice and taking a calculated risk.
Because they aren't the same.
Not at all. In the corporate world, people love to talk about calculated risks. You have a safety net, you've run the data, you have contingency plans.
It feels safe.
Exactly. But rolling the dice implies leaving the outcome up to pure chance. I mean, once the dice leave your hand, gravity and physics just take over. You have zero control.
Wow, it really highlights a much braver or maybe more reckless leap of faith. Why do we use it when we usually do have at least some control, though?
Well, it acts as a sort of psychological defense mechanism.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, by calling an action rolling the dice, you are subconsciously telling your peers, look, I made the leap, but if it fails, it's not entirely my fault. The universe just didn't cooperate.
That's so true. It acknowledges the chaotic nature of reality.
Exactly.
So if I'm an employee taking a massive, scary leap in my career, I might say starting the new project felt like rolling the dice, but it taught me a lot.
Yep. Or for an IELTS Part 2 response describing a risk you've taken, you could say, I rolled the dice when I accepted a short-term contract in a new city.
Right. Because you didn't know anyone, you didn't know if it would lead to a permanent job, you just took the chance.
And sometimes when you roll the dice, it works out so incredibly well that you end up doing our next phrase.
Which is to rewrite the rule book.
Yes.
Meaning to completely change how something is usually done. Now, I wouldn't use this for just like improving a process, right?
Yeah.
Like updating software from version 1.1 to 1.2.
No, definitely not. An improvement is just a minor tweak. Rewriting the rule book is a total paradigm shift.
Right.
Think about playing a game of chess. An improvement is learning a slightly better opening move.
Okay.
But rewriting the rule book is suddenly deciding your knight can move diagonally.
Oh, wow. That changes everything.
Right. You aren't just playing the game slightly better. You are changing the fundamental laws of how the game is played. It invalidates your opponent's entire understanding of the board.
I love that visual. At work, this is basically the highest praise possible. You could say the new approach rewrote the rule book for how we manage projects.
Yeah.
Or pitching a proposal, you could say, introducing a simpler approval process would rewrite the rule book for our team.
That's a very powerful phrase. But you have to remember, when you rewrite the rule book, things get messy.
Oh, for sure. You break the old ways of working.
Which is exactly what our next phrase is all about. Disrupt something. Meaning to unexpectedly interrupt or change a plan, routine, or system.
Now, disrupt gets thrown around as a buzzword constantly in tech and startups.
Constantly.
But we really need to talk about the mechanical difference between interrupting and disrupting.
Yeah, because they were definitely not synonyms. An interruption is just a temporary pause. Like a ringing phone interrupts a meeting.
Right. You answer the phone, hang up, and return to exactly what you were doing.
Exactly. The structure remains intact, but a citywide power outage disrupts the meeting.
Oh, big difference.
Right. The meeting is over, schedules are ruined, and you have to formulate an entirely new plan. A disruption forces a real structural break.
That distinction is so critical. An interruption pauses you. A disruption fundamentally derails and redirects you.
Exactly.
So at work, you'd say the power outage disrupted our meeting and forced a quick reschedule.
Or for IELTS, you could say, a sudden appointment can disrupt my usual schedule for the day.
Right. And because of these massive disruptions, and because rules continually get rewritten, old systems eventually have to be retired.
They do.
Which leads us into phrases dealing with transitions, negotiations, and the people navigating them with you.
Yeah. And the first of those is to phase out of something, meaning to slowly stop doing or using something over time.
This is fascinating to me because it's entirely about managing human psychology during a transition.
Oh, 100%.
I compare phasing out to abolishing or abruptly canceling something. I mean, if you abolish a legacy software system overnight, everyone panics.
Right. The whole workflow just dies.
Exactly. But phasing out is gradual.
The key nuance there is the timeline. A phase out prevents shock to the system. You are actively giving everyone, or even yourself, the necessary time to adjust to a new reality.
It's much softer.
Yeah, it's a strategic, almost compassionate way to kill an old habit or system.
In a corporate setting, you will hear this constantly. Like, the company plans to phase out the old system over the next year. Or, for a personal goal in an IELTS exam, I'd like to phase out late-night snacking to sleep better.
Right, you aren't aggressively quitting cold turkey tonight. You're slowly reducing it. Yeah.
And as you navigate these complex transitions, you'll naturally find yourself in negotiations. This is where our next phrase becomes critical.
Okay, what is it?
To leave something on the table. This means to miss or ignore an available opportunity.
Interesting. So if I compare this to simply losing out on something, say you lose a negotiation for a new house, it just means the other buyer had more money, they beat you.
Right.
But if you leave it on the table, that implies you beat yourself.
Yes. It's the pain of an unforced error. Because if you leave it on the table, the opportunity was entirely yours for the taking.
Wow.
No one outsmarted you, you just missed it through your own hesitation or negligence or maybe just a lack of awareness.
He's right there.
Right there. The money or the deal was sitting right there on the table and you just stood up and walked away without putting it in your pocket.
Ouch. Such a painful lesson for anyone in business.
It really is.
You might hear someone say, they left money on the table by not negotiating the offer.
Or, describing a regret for IELTS, you could say, I left an opportunity on the table when I hesitated to apply for a grant.
Yep. It's all about surviving these high-stakes professional environments. And, well, you can't survive them alone.
No, you definitely can't.
You need to know who on your team you can genuinely rely on when the dice are rolling and the rules are being rewritten.
Which brings us to our final phrase before the quiz. A good egg. Meaning a genuinely kind and trustworthy person.
I love this one.
Me too. Now, in the modern workplace, someone might be labeled a high performer or top talent. But that is a vastly different metric than being a good egg.
Oh, vastly different. You can have a colleague who is a brilliant, high-performing top talent. They generate incredible revenue. Their spreadsheets are completely flawless. But they can still be an absolute nightmare to work with. Toxic, selfish, arrogant.
We've all worked with that person. The one who takes credit for your work the exact moment the boss walks into the room.
Without a doubt. But a good egg doesn't describe someone's performance metrics or their resume. It describes their fundamental, unshakable character.
Right.
It means they possess a baseline of decency and reliability. When a project is disrupted, the good egg is the one who stays late to help you fix it without secretly keeping score or, asking for public credit.
That's so true. So you could say to a new employee, you can rely on Jamie, he's a good egg who always helps others. Or in IELTS Part 2, describing someone you could say, my neighbor's a good egg. They always check in when I'm busy.
It's a slightly old-fashioned idiom, which actually gives it a lot of charm. Using it naturally in conversation today makes your English sound highly advanced and deeply native.
Okay, we've unpacked the psychology behind all 8 of these advanced phrases. Now, it is time for the SpeakDuo Master Quiz.
Yes.
We're going to test you on everything we just covered to really lock this advanced vocabulary into your brain.
So we are going to alternate reading the 8 questions. We'll give you the question, then option A, option B, and option C. We want you to actively think about the answer, connecting it to the subtle nuances we just discussed.
Ready. Here we go. Question 1. Which scenario best exemplifies a person choosing to roll the dice? Think about what it really means when you roll the dice. Is it option A, analyzing all potential outcomes meticulously before you really commit? Option B, guaranteeing absolute success through an extremely rigorous strategy? Or option C, taking a significant risk without knowing what the final result may be? Take a moment to feel free to pause the podcast here if you need to think about the answer.
Right, so the answer is option C. Rolling the dice means taking a significant risk without knowing what the final result may be. Remember our discussion about how rolling the dice leaves the outcome to pure chance, just like accepting a short-term contract in a new city without a safety net. All right, on to question 2. What is the precise implication of phasing out a system? When a company is phasing out a legacy protocol, are they? Option A, gradually eliminating a specific practice over an extended period. Option B, suddenly terminating an ongoing project without any prior warning. Or option C, temporarily pausing an active operation until conditions improve. Feel free to pause the podcast here if you're still deciding.
The answer is option A. Phasing out implies gradually eliminating a specific practice over an extended period. It prevents shock to the system, much like the personal example of wanting to slowly phase out late-night snacking to sleep better.
Excellent.
Okay, question 3. Which action would accurately disrupt an established routine? If you disrupt a schedule, does that look like? Option A, seamlessly integrating a brand new protocol into an existing workflow. Option B, unexpectedly interrupting the normal operation of an established system. Or option C, consistently maintaining the established schedule without any deviation. Feel free to pause the podcast here if you need a second to mull it over.
The answer is option B. To disrupt is to unexpectedly interrupt the normal operation of an established system. We talked about how this forces a structural change, like the power outage that disrupted the meeting and forced a complete frantic reschedule.
Moving right along.
Question 4. What happens when a team decides to kick around a new proposal? When they kick around an idea, are they? Option A, informally discussing various concepts without making a firm decision. Option B, aggressively rejecting proposed strategies during an executive meeting. Or option C, immediately implementing a complicated framework to resolve an issue. Feel free to pause the podcast here if you need to think about it.
The correct choice is option A. To kick around means informally discussing various concepts without making a firm decision. Think back to the IELTS example of a low-pressure plan to start a simple blog that has been just kicking around in someone's head for weeks.
You're doing great. Let's keep going.
Question 5. Which profile most accurately describes someone deemed a good egg? If someone calls you a good egg, are they saying you are? Option A, an exceptionally wealthy individual who frequently funds local events. Option B, a highly competitive colleague who prioritizes their personal success. Or option C, a fundamentally decent and remarkably reliable person in your network. Feel free to pause the podcast here if you need a moment.
The answer is option C. A good egg is a fundamentally decent and remarkably reliable person. This is about character, not metrics. Remember the colleague, Jamie, or the reliable neighbor who is a good egg simply because they always check in when you are busy.
Right.
Okay, question 6. What is the result when an innovation rewrites the rulebook? If a new process rewrites the rulebook, does it mean? Option A, strictly enforcing all the traditional guidelines within a department. Option B, fundamentally revolutionizing the established methods of an industry. Or option C, carefully documenting minor procedural updates for future references. Feel free to pause the podcast here if you want to consider your choice.
It is option B. To rewrite the rulebook means fundamentally revolutionizing the established methods of an industry. It's the chess knight moving diagonally. Just like the new approach, they completely rewrote the rulebook for how the team manages projects.
Almost done.
Question 7. How would you define a situation that is beginning to come about? If we say an event has come about, does it mean? Option A, to materialize or unfold organically, often in an unanticipated manner. Option B, to forcefully demand immediate compliance from a hesitant stakeholder. Or option C, to deliberately conceal crucial evidence during a formal investigation. Feel free to pause the podcast here to lock in your answer.
The answer is option A. To come about means to materialize organically, often in an unanticipated manner. We talked about how this sounds humble, using the example of the collaboration that came about purely after a chance conversation at an event.
And our final question, question 8, what occurs when negotiators leave something on the table? If they leave something on the table, are they? Option A, successfully securing the absolute maximum benefit from a negotiation. Option B, failing to capitalize on an advantageous opportunity that is available. Or option C, intentionally delaying a critical final decision until the next month. Feel free to pause the podcast here one last time if you need to think it through.
The final answer is option B. To leave something on the table is failing to capitalize on an advantageous opportunity that is available to you. We mentioned the incredibly painful example of an unforced error, leaving money on the table simply by failing to negotiate an offer.
Wow, that quiz really puts the nuances into perspective.
It really does.
If you got all 8 of those right, your advanced English comprehension is incredibly sharp.
Seriously. But before we wrap up this deep dive, I actually want to leave you with a more philosophical takeaway built on everything we just discussed.
Ooh, I love these. Let's hear it.
So, notice how many of our professional and advanced English idioms are intimately tied to games and gambling.
Wait, really?
Think about it. We just spent this entire session exploring what it means to be rolling the dice, rewriting the rulebook, and leaving chips or money on the table.
Oh, wow. That's entirely true. I mean, even kicking an idea around is deeply rooted as a sports metaphor.
Exactly. So the real question is, Why do we subconsciously frame our careers, our negotiations, and our daily corporate routines as games of chance to be played or won?
Hmm.
It suggests that deep down we acknowledge that despite all our spreadsheets, data analysis, and planning, a massive part of professional success relies on luck, strategy, and risk.
We want to believe we're in total control, but our language gives away the truth.
Precisely. So the next time you go to work, I want you to listen closely to the conversations around you. Are your colleagues speaking the language of careful, predictable business, or are they actually speaking the language of a casino?
That is going to completely change how I listen to my next meeting. A game of chance indeed. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. Keep practicing your advanced vocabulary, keep putting yourself out there, and we will see you next time.